We are less than 3 weeks away from college football officially being back. We've covered my top 10 quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, offensive linemen, wide receivers, defensive linemen, linebackers, and now finally, for the last position of the skill sets, before we get into special teams, of course, why not we cover the top 10 defensive backs in the SEC for 2024. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Lucas Hill here with SEC Unfiltered. Thank you guys for listening in wherever you watch this episode, whether it be on YouTube, you're listening to it on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Also, check out more from us here at SEC Unfiltered over at secunfiltered.com. And make sure you follow us on every social media platform: Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok. Today's video has been brought to you by our good friends over at Prize Picks. Go on over to prizepicks.com and use code SECU at sign up to get $50 instantly when you play your first $55 or more lineup. We just released our picks for the passing yards, the rushing yards, and the receiving yard numbers over for that Prize Picks is released. And this should be some big money that we could cover. We got a whole list of it coming out very soon. You can find all that out over on X at SEC Unfiltered. And for more from us, of course, going over to our good friends over at prizepicks.com, give you that sweet little discount code SECU. So coming in at number 10 on my top 10 list, I have Andrew Makuba. Now, why do I have him so low? Yeah, he was ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year, all ACC guy. Injuries have kind of derailed him from being higher up on this list. He is a very good nickelback, very good cover corner, and a guy that I think is going to make a big difference for this Texas secondary, a team that really struggled last year. And he has the opportunity to be much more for this Texas secondary. I mean, this is a guy that knows how to tackle, does very well, reads the quarterback's eyes amazingly, was the first true freshman defensive back to start a season opener for Clemson since freshmen became eligible back in the 70s. He started more games in the DB backfield in 2021 than any Clemson true freshman in the modern era. And when you look overall at how he plays, you turn on the film, this guy is all over the field. This guy is good in run support. He's good whenever you get him into nickel positions. He can make the big play and can get over in a hurry in one-on-one situations and get past deflections easily. This is a guy that I think is going to break out with Texas, and I think it's going to be a big reason why Texas should improve in their secondary in 2024. Coming in at number 9, I have Jason Marshall over at Florida. Marshall's a pretty interesting prospect because last year you wouldn't think that this guy had a lot of stats, 20 tackles and 11 pass deflections. So overall, it really wasn't a bad year for him. But the biggest thing about him is consistency. He's been a consistent player ever since he first came to Florida back in 2021. This is a guy that I think has an unbelievable opportunity to really do so much more this year than he has been before. Coming out of high school, was the number 5 cornerback in the nation, number 3 according to 247. Reminded him of Carlton Davis. I mean, this is a guy that has promising size and strength. He's a very physical corner. He has a smooth backfield. Is able to stay balanced whenever he goes in reverse. When you get him in press coverage, I mean, he is just dominant with his hands. Doesn't let a wide receiver create separation from him. And even when they do, he has excellent track down speed to make the tackle out in the open space or make the chase down tackle as well. So this is a guy that I think can really make a big difference for Florida's secondary. And I think will be one of the reasons that despite all the missing pieces that you would see from Florida, they're going to be a lot better in that secondary wise than they were last year. Coming in at number 8, I have Keontae Scott from Auburn. Scott has spoken very loudly about how he thinks that this Auburn defense has an opportunity to be one of the best in the SEC. So he's been with 3 different defensive coordinators so far. He was with Derek Mason in 2021, then Jeff Schmedding in 2022, and then Ron Roberts showed up in 2023 and didn't really do so well. So, I mean, this is a completely different Auburn team that really excelled last year, but was really held back from their defense as well. They go into 2024 with DJ Durkin from Texas A&M this past year. Longtime defensive coordinator, a longtime guy who's been around the college game since the beginning of the 21st century. And this guy is a very smart, very instinctive, very knowledgeable defensive coordinator. He's been around some of the best. He was with Ole Miss for a couple of years, went to Texas A&M and led their defense to some great things. So him and Charles Kelly are going to be in a pretty good position. And if you remember what happened with Charles Kelly last year, Colorado defense really wasn't good until the later part of the year. But now you get a new opportunity with a brand new defense that showed a lot of signs of being elite last year. And if it wasn't for how the offense performed last year, you would think that this is a team that would have done more than going over to the Music City Bowl. I mean, they showed a lot of promise, especially midseason whenever they held Ole Miss in check. They were competitive with Georgia's offense. They were just overall a really, really, really good defense. But I don't think that they had a lot of experience as well. So secondary-wise, when you get a guy like Keontae Scott who has unbelievable coverage skills, he's going to be a guy that people need to look out for. And now it's going to be him and the rest of this Auburn secondary that hopefully Auburn will be primed for a breakout in this upcoming season. Coming up at number 7, I have Key Lawrence. He's the transfer from Oklahoma. Now he's at Ole Miss. And boy, is he a guy to look out for. This guy is unbelievably one of the smartest safeties in the game. I mean, when you look at him, he just makes plays all over the field. And people really don't know who he is as a player. I mean, the stats may say otherwise, but I mean, this is a guy that makes tackle after tackle after tackle. Excellent run support guy, is able to read quarterback size, reads quarterback depth. I mean, when you send him on a blitz, he's coming in full steam ahead, and he is fast when he comes off of that edge. There's no question in my mind that he could have an opportunity to have a breakout year for this Ole Miss secondary, who had a lot of problems last year. But now they're going to be better than ever with a guy like Key Lawrence and many more that's going to come through Oxford. Coming in at number 6, I got J.D. Barron. Barron's interesting. I mean, this is a guy that, again, last year Texas's secondary was, I think they were 117th last year in pass defense. But you not only have Makuba, but you have Barron, who was with this Texas team last year and showed out. Was an all Big 12 selection. 61 tackles, 1 interception, and 7 PBUs. Now you get a senior leader to go along with that, who's going to have to lead this secondary as well. Makuba has experience, but Barron is probably the guy that's going to lead this group all over the secondary. He's going to get guys all around the field. When you get him in a position to where he can be successful, he's going to really dominate so far. Has an opportunity to be something so special. Jim Thorpe Award finalist this past year, semifinalist this past year, will probably be on the watch list this year because of just what he can do. He's got 3 non-offensive touchdowns. He's had a blocked punt return, a pick 6, and a fumble recovery for a touchdown. If he gets the football in his hands, he's going to the house. He's going to look for 6. And Texas has had great defensive backs come out of Austin in the past years. Think about Mike Huff. Guys like that. This is an unbelievable defensive back. Deshaun Elliott is another guy. Texas isn't DBU by any means, but they have an opportunity to improve big time this year with those two guys, with Makuba and Barron returning to Austin. Coming in at number 5, I have Damani Jackson, the transfer from USC, now at Alabama. He and another guy on this list that we'll mention are going to be key for Alabama to have success in 2024 and to have to replace a first-round talent of a secondary that was in 2023. When you talk about Terrion Arnold, Caleb Downs, and Kool-Aid McKinstry, who are all out of Tuscaloosa. Downs is now at Ohio State, and McKinstry and Terrion Arnold is now in the NFL. Number 9 overall recruit coming out of high school, number 1 player in the state of California, was a solid player at USC, but just did not like the defensive system that he was in. I mean, this is a guy that spent, I believe, 2 years with Alex Grinch, and it was hell for him. I mean, he was set up to fail whenever he went to USC because Alex Grinch didn't have this team set up the way that Jackson was supposed to be in. Now you bring him into a setup like he is right now at Alabama. Now he has an opportunity to do some great things this year. I mean, there's a reason why he was so highly sought after going into his freshman year at USC. Fall camp wise, he's had a great camp. Heard some great things about him from Coach DeBoer throughout the press conferences. He's got an opportunity to do some great things this year, and he's going to be one of the leaders for this young secondary in Alabama. Coming in at number 4, I have Billy Bowman. Bowman was an unbelievable stud this past year for the Sooners. First team all Big 12 last year and has first-round grades all over to him. Bowman is a dog. 6 interceptions this past year to go along with 37 tackles. And, I mean, when you put him on the edge as well, he's great in run support, had 3 tackles for loss last year. He's going to go to the house whenever he gets his hands on the football. He's going to want to return it all for touchdowns. He had 3 pick sixes this past year. I think he led the country in interceptions and ranked second nationally with returns, I believe. And, I mean, come on. When you get a guy like that in your backfield, a guy that's going to be returning for this Oklahoma secondary and for this Oklahoma defense that struggled a good bit last year, now you're going to have some fun with a guy like that. I mean, this guy can be used all over the field. You could put him at nickel. You could put him at cover corner. You could put him at safety. Zach Alley's going to have a lot of fun with him. Oh, my goodness. It's going to be a lot of fun being with a guy like that. And make no mistake, this guy is legit. This guy has a legitimate chance to be a first-round talent if he continues the same production like he had last year. It's going to be a different animal now he's in the SEC because this is not a passing system, but we'll just have to see what happens going into this year. Going up at number 3, I have Malachi Moore. I talked about Damani Jackson being a difference maker, and Malachi Moore is going to have to do the same thing. He's been with Alabama since the COVID year in 2020. So was a true freshman starter ever since his freshman year. Was a second-team All-SEC during his freshman year. And he's a captain. He's got to be the guy that steps up for this team. You have to get him in a groove because this guy is a really, really good player. This guy has an opportunity to do some great things. It sucks that he really hasn't had an opportunity to showcase that because he's been a consistent player the last 4 years of his career. Had 3 interceptions during his freshman year. Since then, he's only had 2 because people respect him. They respect what he does. They don't throw his way a whole lot. He does excellent in coverage. He does excellent whenever it comes to being able to in run support. He does well when it comes to reading the field. He's a smart, instinctive player, and he knows what he's doing. So him and Damani Jackson are going to be the two big guys that the SEC needs to look out for, because if they don't, it's going to be bad news for everybody in the SEC when you get those two in a groove, and those two could be first-team All-SEC DBs and NFL draft picks come next April. Number 2, Maxwell Hairston. This guy's been with Kentucky majority of his career, all of his career, actually. So this is a guy that I think is going to be a really, really, really solid guy. Was a second-team All-SEC last year, was a preseason All-First Team this upcoming year. Had a breakout game in week 4 against Vanderbilt, had 2 interceptions. One was a pick six, or actually 2 pick sixes. First time that anybody in Kentucky history has ever had that in a game. Most in school history. Nobody's even come close to that. Hairston is going to be the difference maker for this Kentucky secondary, and it should be a strong Kentucky defense. You've got studs all over the field. You've got Deion Walker at defensive line. You've got Pop Dumas manning the middle in the linebacking core. That should be unbelievably good if he's healthy. And now you have a guy like Maxwell Hairston, who's going to be so very unbelievably great this year. There's no doubt in my mind that I think he has an opportunity to be one of the best in the SEC, one of the best in the going into the NFL draft. And I think he could be a Jim Thorpe Award finalist come November. And he's going to do so much more whenever he gets back into a groove. And number 1, it should be no question in anybody else's mind. It's Malachi Starks, the 2-time All-American from Georgia. He's done a lot to be the new leader of this Georgia defense. He's done so many good things with this team. He's going to probably be a top 10 draft pick coming April. Kirby Smart loves this guy. This is a guy that he's going to be expected to do the same things that he's done the last 2 years of his career. He's going to have to be a better leader, though. He's going to have to elevate his game. He's got to get better whenever it comes to getting into his drops, whenever it comes to reading the field a bit better. Because, I mean, if you look back at that Alabama game, he looked a little bit lost sometimes. So he has to get better at those situations. Other than the guy that has all the intangibles to be a top 10 draft pick and much more once we get to the end of the season. And I think he's going to be my pick for the Jim Thorpe Award winner. That's my top 10. What do you guys think about it? Who did I miss in the top 10? Let me know down in the comments down below. And for more from us here at SEC Unfiltered, go to secunfiltered.com for more from our wonderful staff here. Check out the articles, check out the podcast version of this episode, and more from the best SEC entity on the internet. Make sure you holler at us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok, and turn on the bell notifications and subscribe for more from SEC Unfiltered. And for the rest of us here, for myself, I'm Lucas Hill. I'll see you guys on the other side.